Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Sit Downs with Charlie Brown. I'm your host, as always, DJ Charlie Brown or Charlie Gropner, whatever you choose to call me. Once again, back on here because every time I ask, you said yes, Mr. Hayden Lee. Everyone, he's back.
Good to be back. Good to be back, man.
Yeah, no, I tell people this all the time. I ask people like, "Hey, you want to come on?" And I'm like, "Sure." And it's like I always try to make good impressions so that they come back. And every time I've asked you, you've been gracious enough to come back on. So.
Ish, man. This is the only place I get to freely talk about my football knowledge.
Yeah, yeah, I could feel that, man. So yeah, if you're back on, it means NFL season is officially wrapped up. We have our Super Bowl matchup, which we will be getting to later in the episode. But I
Yeah.
figured we got to go through a lot of what kind of transpired this season. So
Yeah.
how this is going to work for people listening out there. We're not going to go through every team because, as much as I know there's some people out there who would like deeper analysis, I'm going to probably go a little bit more I'm going to probably do an episode closer to the draft. I'm going to probably do more analysis in there. But in the meantime, me and Hayden have talked about this. We chose 5 teams that we believed overachieved this year and our 5 teams that underachieved this year, and we're going to kind of go through those. So I figured we can start this off. We can go with the overachievers. First one, and this is my number one, the Washington Commanders, who, if you're a Washington fan, you got to be ecstatic about this franchise right now, ever since like the new ownership came in. But the fact is, they were picked to do nothing this year. They not only proved that they have they have a bright future, but they made the NFC Championship game for like the first time since like the 90s. Like Jaden Daniels, like I love that dude. I can't talk enough about him. Like words cannot describe that. He is probably the next guy coming up in the NFC that people got to watch out for. So,
Mhm. Yeah, there's nothing that hasn't been said about the Commanders that we can talk about right here.
yeah.
Obviously they got all the media attention for the past couple weeks for doing what they did. So, yeah,
Yeah.
kudos to those guys. And they still have a long ways to go if you think about it. If you got
Mm-hmm.
Olamide Zaccheaus and Jamison Crowder out there catching passes in the NFC Championship game, I mean,
Yeah. Your best.
you got places to
Yeah.
improve, but you made
Yeah. I
it.
mean, Washington's always had a couple few pieces. Terry McLaurin, like, probably have, he's probably moved from being the guy who everyone thought is underrated to now, like, he's legitimately probably one of the best receivers in football just
Yeah.
because he went through so many different quarterbacks that this is probably like a godsend for his career. Just the fact that
Yeah.
he now has a legitimate quarterback for him. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be good. It'll be fun to watch those guys for years to come.
definitely, definitely. So, next team that I have on here, and I'm just going down my list. So, I put the Carolina Panthers in here. Like, and I
Okay.
know people are thinking, yes, they have a ton of holes on the roster. They still have a lot of work to do in the rebuild. But a big thing that I'm putting them here is simple. It's the fact that Bryce Young got benched like week 7 or 8 when they were in Germany. After getting benched and then coming back into the game, he played insane. Like he actually showed like, okay, this is what the guy we were advertised when we were picking you first overall. And like it's still a long way to go, and it's still the hope is that he can continue this. But I think the fact that it's making the trade look a little bit better just because people were starting to hail it as one of the worst trades in NFL history, which I didn't. I Herschel Walker, that's all I'll say. But
Yeah.
realistically, like I think it's getting better for Carolina. So
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you take the whole season in a vacuum, you'll be excited about what you got. But if you break it down from like when Bryce got benched to now, you're feeling a whole lot better.
mhm.
Um, yeah, like you said, there's still a lot of holes, but there's a lot of bright spots too. I mean, you have your draft picks this year. There you go. I
Yeah,
mean, whatever you want to say about the draft class, but yeah, as a whole, I think the Panthers definitely overachieved. But I'll raise you the Cardinals.
yeah,
Kind of a
mhm.
team that I feel like expectations were up in the air, and I want to say it was right before they played the Vikings that they were actually leading the NFC West, and they looked like, oh, they
Yeah.
might make the playoffs. Jonathan Gannon's defense kind of came together.
hmm
You had Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison to a certain extent balling out. Um, Question really has been Kyler. What is he?
Yeah.
Who is he going to be? But yeah, I think as a whole, the Cardinals definitely overachieved, coming down to the wire, making the playoffs. And
Yeah.
I don't know where I see them in the future, but I think as a whole, they had a pretty solid season.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you kind of expect from like a team that I think when they got rid of Kingsbury, they were kind of looking not as much as like a full rebuild, but more of a retool because you have Kyler that say what you want about him. I think you see what that the talent's there. I think the goal is just trying to insulate him properly and not like what they were trying to do with Kingsbury and Kime on
Hmm.
the Kingsbury Kime regime. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it'll be just interesting to see where they go
hmm
from here.
Yeah. And then the other team that I know both you and I have, the LA Chargers. I kind of saw that when with Jim Harbaugh coming in, things were going to really change for this franchise. And turns out that I was actually not too far off. They weren't obviously they still have like issues with wide receiver and is the big issue there. But I think, realistically, like considering this was Harbaugh's first year back after being in college for the longest time, they had a lot of question marks on the roster. The fact that they were able to get to the postseason, I think, is just a nice step in the right direction.
Hmm.
They still need more, obviously, but I think for the first year of the new Harbaugh regime, it's a big step.
Yeah,
So,
it is a big step. If you told me players like Hayden Hurst and Darius Davis would be contributing factors on a playoff team, like
hmm
I would have called you crazy. And their defense made a lot happen with not a whole lot of like actual NFL talent. I don't
hmm
like using that term, but like they had a lot of no name players in terms of like the casual fan would know.
yeah,
And they ended up making a lot of great plays, which just it's a testament to how much Jim can get out of his players. And
hmm
they have a full slate of draft picks, I believe. I can't remember
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. They do have most of their draft capital in this year's class.
Yeah.
So
So there
there's
you go. There's a lot of Michigan players in the draft. I'd love to see Colston Loveland get drafted to the Chargers.
Yeah.
Um,
Loveland, I could see. I could also see him maybe getting Tyler Warren because I don't know what it is about Penn State tight ends, man.
yeah,
That dude's just built different.
yeah.
So,
So yeah, great season for the Chargers. They
yeah.
got Herbert, and he's going to come off of this playoff game. People are going to down
Yeah.
him. You know,
Yeah. Like, here's the thing I don't put the playoff success too much on him because, I mean, like, it's not that, like, here's the thing. I feel like he's played in two playoff games in his entire career. The first one, that wasn't much on him. It was on Brandon Staley being an idiot.
yeah, right.
This one, little on him, but I mean you can also point to the fact that this was a year where it was house money. They had no expectations.
Mhm.
Like this wasn't the year, essentially, is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, yeah, and he's still so young, and we
Yeah.
drag down these quarterbacks so much.
hmm
So it's another one that you're just gonna trash and you'll forget about, and maybe he'll overperform next playoffs, maybe he'll underperform, but he's still a good quarterback at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of things are blown out of proportion
hmm
with that.
Yeah. So, other team I have here, the Denver Broncos. Now, here's the thing: my opinions of Sean Payton are not changing whatsoever. That is a guarantee. All right, those
Yeah.
those are those are going to be still standing. But what I will say about this is, I had my doubts about Bo Nix. He made me shut me up real quick.
Yep.
Because here's the thing, like, you know, obviously I want to see how he looks next year, but I think for a guy who many people had questions about because he was in college for the longest time, he actually looked like he belonged there and actually poised. And plus, he had some great talent around him. Running backs look okay. Okay, they still have some good wide receiving talent. More importantly, like I think the defense is really kicking back up just because, not just Patrick Sertan, but a lot of these other guys they have, like Nick Bonino, no, Cooper,
Zach
I
Allen.
forget his. Yeah, exactly.
Allen on the interior. Yeah, they when you lay the foundation with Sertan, a lot of things get
hmm
easier. Riley
Yeah.
Moss, Brandon Jones, like a lot of those guys, like I said, would mention with the Chargers. I mean, I think this is a pretty comparable situation. You got two older head coaches that really know what they're doing. They've been there, achieved a lot in their careers with youngish quarterbacks.
hmm
No, what you said about Bo Nix too. I mean, good player.
Yeah.
If this is a ceiling, say that was the whole thing with him, right? Like he is what is his ceiling? He's so old. I think Sean Payton would take this year in, year out if he
Yeah.
got this season of Bo Nix, and maybe it's not a top 10 quarterback, but like, hey, you still get a solid guy and you insulate the team, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
Get him some better receivers, so little Jordan Humphrey and Adam Troutman aren't on the field all the time. And I think you could really
Yeah.
see something starting to come out of this Broncos team.
Yeah.
Shitty thing is that they play in the division with the Chiefs and the Chargers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hey,
And
maybe the Raiders. I don't know.
yeah.
Probably.
And that's the thing. Like, I know people think like, oh, you need a superstar quarterback in order to go all the way. Not all the time. Like Joe, like here's the thing. Peyton Manning in his twilight won a Super Bowl with that Denver defense carrying him.
Mhm.
Guys like Joe Flacco. I'm trying to think of like who the quarterback was for like the Bucks team in '02, but yeah, you don't always need that, but I think if you have like a a team that's fully loaded from top to bottom, like all 52, it's doable. So that's just where I stand. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And
So now
then,
the final team that I know both you and I have, and
of course, a little
I
bit of a
know
home
people
upgrade.
like here's the thing, before people call us biased, you have to understand. With the Minnesota Vikings, here's the thing. Coming into this year, the we expectations were at the freaking floor because you got to think about the going into training camp. McCarthy had his meniscus tear. You know, but Blackman tore his ACL. Kyrie Jackson, God rest his soul no longer is with us.
Hmm.
Everything just seemed like it was rock bottom. The Vikings were going to finish last in this division. It was just a case of, you know, no one had any faith. Even I was starting to lose a little faith. Like I felt like it
Yeah.
wasn't going to be that. But what happened? Well, they just happened to go 14-3, 14-3 and nearly take the number 1 seed. No biggie with Sam Darnold. Okay? So, like here's the thing. I know people are going to point to the end, like don't get me wrong. Ending was bad,
Horrible,
okay?
horrible ending.
Yeah, but I think here's the thing. Like I think overall, this is for what was supposed to be considered a retool year or whatever at this point. I seriously give the Vikings a lot of credit because with I think this this year showed why Kevin O'Connell was brought here in the first place. He
Definitely.
is a he is people say oh he's a quarterback whisperer. I actually believe it because find
Hmm.
me another man who could fix Sam Darnold. Okay, find me a man. All right. So that's my thing. And I know draft wise they don't have a ton of picks, but I think they're going to be active in free agency. So
I'll get to my thoughts about the draft and free agency with them, but as for the season itself, there was always signs that the end would be what it was.
yeah,
But if I mean, like everything's been said too, as with the Commanders, with the Vikings when they had their moment of glory in Week 18. Um, you go back to the win totals and the expectations and everything that happened, and that's all that really needs to be said. If when you talk about overperforming, the Vikings are the perfect example of that because,
hmm
I mean. There goes with the Commanders. You have a rookie quarterback, so it's kind of like, oh, is he going to be
yeah,
really good? Is he going to be really bad? But with the Vikings, you had people genuinely saying Sam Darnold is worse than Daniel Jones. And Daniel Jones ended up on the Vikings roster backing up Sam Darnold. So, I mean, like, obviously, from a Vikings fan standpoint, we feel a lot better about it than maybe like
yeah,
a Giants fan would say, oh, yeah, the Vikings definitely overachieved. But from the feelings that are in like the building and, things that we might now
yeah,
think, and like compared to where we were at the beginning of the year, I'd say this season was a massive success for the Vikings. And
yeah,
yeah, and with the draft too, I mean, the way I see it, we have the picks we need. We're getting a comp pick for Kirk, it looks like, and this draft is the one I'd want to be weak on picks for.
yeah. Cause I think first pick, like I know people are saying corner, like I don't think they're going corner. I would like to see an interior tackle like a D
Yeah,
tackle get taken just because
and
I think that's probably been the weakest thing for the longest time just because I
yeah,
love Harrison Phillips, but he can't do it alone. He really
hmm
can't.
No.
So
Yeah, I will have to see how free agency goes, see the holes we fill there,
yeah.
and draft. Honestly, with the way we are, I think you just draft BPA and you move on.
Hmm.
That's the way I see it.
Definitely. Definitely. So yeah, those were our teams that I think we all saw as like the overachievers of the league. Now we get to those who were underachieving. Now the first one I have, the New York flipping Jets. When you thought here's the thing. When Aaron Rodgers held out at during OTAs, to think that was the most sane moment of this of the Jets season is a just immaculate thing. Because here's the thing, obviously I wasn't sold on the Jets to begin with going into the year, but the problem is when I thought they would hit low, they went even lower. Because I here's the thing, I know people will say, oh, they fired Robert Saleh and Woody Chris
Joe Douglas.
Johnson,
Joe Douglas.
Joe Douglas, the GM. My bad.
Yeah.
They fired him because they suck. No, I totally believe that Aaron Rodgers said fire them. Okay, I totally believe it. All right, because that's how Aaron rolls sometimes. I watched his documentary on Netflix. Don't question it.
Yeah.
They traded for Devontae Adams to try and fix things. Didn't work. It was to the point where it's bad when that article that came out that Woody Johnson is listening to his kids and using Madden as an influencing factor. I believe it because that's how this team rolls. It's just straight up, and it's like, oh God, like this is like here's the thing, like there are bad owners in sports, but Woody Johnson is setting record for that for the next guy to go on the chopping block. So
Yeah. Yeah, the Jets are a hell of a story. I mean, you
mhm.
talk about one of the biggest disappointments ever the last 2 years, Oh, I don't even know. My mind is so clouded with all of the disappointments that happened with the Jets, but
Yeah,
all the personnel they had, the defense they thought they had.
yeah,
Ugh, and I don't know. I
yeah.
think you really said it, man. There's been so many stories about the Jets, and I hope they can pick the pieces back up and put it together. But I think the icing on top of their season was in like week 17 when DJ Reed and Sauce Gardner were literally telling people not to come to the Jets because of how bad
Yeah, like
it
that's the
was.
thing. Like my question is this, like they got to realize this is going to affect them like in the draft, like they can get players, but here's the thing, it's going to affect free agency because no one's going to want to come there because like that's the issue because my question now is like how long until we hear that Garrett Wilson wants out, Sauce Gardner wants out,
Maybe.
like
I mean, yeah, the Garrett Wilson trade rumors, if Rodgers comes back, who knows? I mean, that's exactly the
yeah,
thing. I don't even know whether to believe that or not
like
because
here's the thing, I like getting Aaron Glenn as head coach because I think he's ready for the role and
culture setter.
he's a culture setter. But the problem is, I don't know. I really don't know if unless he can really tell Woody Johnson to stay away from the team and stay and just let me do my job. I don't know if they can fix this. I really
Yeah.
don't. And especially because now there's $1 million question. What are you going to do with Rodgers and Adams? Because Rodgers, like, here's the thing, Hall of Fame player, he's not getting any younger. And
Mm-hmm.
Adams is probably wanting. Adams isn't as well, and he wants to win. That's the
Right.
issue.
Yeah. I think you cut bait with both of them, move on, try
Hmm.
and erase this as best you can.
Yeah,
I mean, that's all you really can do with something like this.
yeah.
You want to keep talking about owners that might put their teams in the garbage?
Oh, oh,
Shout out
baby,
Muhammad. Muhammad, if you're listening.
Muhammad. First off, Muhammad, if you're listening, we're sorry. I got 3 words for the everyone out there. How?
Oh man, the Cowboys. Listen, I know you want to talk about how underwhelming they were.
Oh,
I'll
underwhelming.
listen. I'm gonna cut him a bit of a break just because of the Dak injury.
Yeah,
I think.
that's what I'll say. The Dak injury, that's not on them.
Mhm.
Though, what I feel there's a big issue with the Cowboys, and I feel like it starts and ends with Jerry Jones. Here's the thing, and people say I've heard people say this. He wants to win, but he wants to win his way. That's
Yeah.
the big issue. It's why last offseason he said all in, he didn't do anything. He
Hmm.
waited way too long to pay Dak. He waited way too long to pay CD.
Hmm.
And it showed this year. And now it's going to show it going into next year because Mike McCarthy, Mike McCarthy, everyone thought he'd be back. He got to the point where he said, like, yeah, I'm done. So
Yeah.
he just left.
I
And
don't. I don't blame him.
yeah, and now Brian Schottenheimer is the coach who was the OC. He didn't even call plays. What are we doing?
Yeah. I'm a bigger fan than most about the Schottenheimer hire. At one point, he was a promising coach.
Yeah.
I think he could tap into some stuff,
Mm-hmm.
but there's just you have to go out on a limb for so many things with this team that it becomes almost like they're a team of ifs. Like if you see all the if man
Yeah.
things about Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow, it's like if
Mm-hmm.
the Cowboys hire or sign the right players, which they
Yeah.
absolutely can. You hear about Derrick Henry talking about he wanted to go there. Stephon
Yeah.
Diggs is a free agent this offseason. I think it's a failure if they don't bring him in. Not only has he already been in the Texas area playing for the Texans, his brother plays on the team.
Yeah. Like,
They need a receiver too. They need these guys, these
yeah.
stars that they're so accustomed to bringing in
Mm-hmm.
to making their offseason worth it. Because let's be honest, the Cowboys are a huge market. They're the biggest market, whether we
Yeah.
all like to
Like they're
admit
one
it
of
or
they're worth almost $11 billion.
like they need to
And
make some moves. They have a good quarterback. We can all admit Dak's a good
yeah.
quarterback, great quarterback, I'd
Mm-hmm.
say.
Like
And
here's my thing
they
with
have a
Dak.
window. They can do it. They
Yeah.
just
Like
never
here's
do.
my thing with Dak. He is a great quarterback. He gets beat up a ton for stuff that I don't think is really his fault. But I
Mhm.
think the issue is his contract.
Yeah.
60 million years for a guy who's only done very minimal, like 2 playoff wins.
Yeah. Is it
Yeesh.
even that? I'm not even sure.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
that's the
they
thing. Like
they have their window here, and they need to do some stuff.
I really don't know if they can because here's the thing. I feel like the big thing is I feel the big issue is with the Cowboys is that it's like I said, it begins and ends with Jerry Jones, and I feel like he's not going to change right now because if he really wanted to admit change, he would have on like the Monday after the regular season ended, Mike McCarthy would have been out the door, and he would have been in that window like with the Jets, the Bears, like everyone interviewing those big name coaches like Ben
Right.
Johnson, Aaron Glenn, Liam
Hmm.
Cohen, but
Even their assistants.
yeah, even the assistants. Like he didn't like there were I remember Robert Sala, Brian Schottenheimer, and I think like Ron Rivera or something like that. That's it. Like,
That their
what are we
coach.
doing here? So yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing. And honestly, I could see I think the Cowboys are gonna be like here's the thing. A big thing in this, Philadelphia. In like the past 5 years, 2 Super Bowls. What have
Hmm.
you done?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
yeah. So the next team I got on here is I know one you've also got, and that's the Jags. I
Mhm.
mean, I knew that I had a lot of question marks about the Jags going into this year, but this was kind of alarming. And honestly, I don't think it was I know many people are going to point to the players and Trevor Lawrence. I put this more at the feet of Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke because Peterson, he was a great coach for Philly at the time. But I think, as time went on, it just kind of was yeah, really was not the
Mhm.
guy. And I thought he did a good job in Jacksonville establishing culture, but I think it's got to the point where it was stagnant. I
Yeah.
put him, if anything, I put this more on Trent Baalke, just on the fact that go back and look at the Jags drafting record since he took over. It is besides Lawrence and a few other guys, it is abysmal for how many guys they whiffed on. So
Hmm.
that's the big issue with that. But
Yeah.
I
What's sorry to cut
no,
you off,
no,
but
go
with the
for it. Go.
Jaguars, kind of like it. This sparked when you said that they have their stars, right? They got Josh Allen, Trayvon Walker, Brian Thomas, Evan Ingram. I feel like the problem with them is they get so little out of the other guys on their team, like the non-stars. Anton
Yeah.
Harrison, you talk about a tackle that was drafted in the first round. He's barely done anything. If you remember when they drafted, I believe it was Caleb on Chason and CJ
Yeah.
Henderson in the same draft. Um, those guys
None.
don't hit. Like their free agent signings rarely hit. They signed Gabe Davis this offseason. He was iffy when he was on the field, then he got hurt. You had a chance to trade Christian Kirk when you could, then he broke his collarbone. That's just unlucky. But
Yeah.
it's the between the margins things that the Jaguars miss so often that I think always leads to them just being like a pitfall for just mediocrity. And
Yeah.
it's frustrating because there's been some really good Jags teams in the past 10 years, even. Talk
Yeah.
about Jacksonville team, the Trevor Lawrence year where they came back after his 4 pick half. The Jaguars have a lot of potential. And,
Yeah.
I like Liam Cohen as a hire, but this season was just the epitome of everything Jacksonville has been for the past couple of years.
Yeah. Like that's the thing. Like I really want to see who they're going to bring in as GM because they need someone who actually has a vision for this team, not someone who's just simply going to come in and fill the role. Someone who's like, okay, this is what we're going to need. We got to get this. We got to get this, and we
Right.
got to get busy because,
Mhm. Yeah, that
like,
division wide open.
yeah, their division's wide open. Like, I know people will talk about the Texans, but I think realistically, like, even though they slumped this year, like, if they like, do you really think like they're beatable? Like,
Oh, definitely.
I don't think
Definitely.
like they're a team that's just like gonna win every game this year. So
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, if we're moving on to the Texans, I
yeah,
can
I
say
mean, let's go
just for
for it.
them because you CJ Stroud off to such a hot start, the receivers get injured, he slumps.
Yeah,
And I think the disappointing thing about the team was less on CJ Stroud and more the lack of adjusting that they did.
yeah,
You have Joe Mixon on your team. He was pretty much there the whole year. I know he
yeah,
missed a few games at the start of the year, but he should have been the person they were
hmm,
riding the most, and they kept putting themselves in holes. I
yeah,
think I saw a stat that they were one of the teams that ran the ball the least on first
hmm,
down, which was actually really surprising to me because of how many second and tens they faced, or second and longs.
yeah,
Because I don't know, it seemed like they would run the ball for 1 yard, and then they would
yeah.
just chuck 3 straight balls out in the middle of the field, and they wouldn't hit if Nico Collins didn't make a great play.
Yeah. Like
And
this is the thing I noticed with the Texans. Like the defense I didn't have an issue with. I thought they did the best they could. They actually did very well up until the end when they were just kind of like they were gassed, like they were on the field majority of the time. I think it was just like a lot of offensive issues, no discipline on the offensive line,
yeah, definitely. Yeah.
struggling at receiver, Stroud slump, which is a big reason why I'm kind of glad Bobby Slowick kind of got removed from his position because I think for this was supposed to be a year where they were going to get many people thought they would go to the AFC Championship game, but they didn't even make they made it to the divisional and then fell short. So
Right. I will say one thing about Bobby Slowick, and I think whoever does pick him up, I don't know if he has been picked up yet. Have you seen
I
anything?
don't think so. So no.
I think whoever picks him up and actually lets him run his philosophy will succeed. Because if you look at the personnel Bobby Slowick brought last year, um, to this Texans team, he brought back the fullback. He brought back Andrew Beck, and he played a lot. They had a running back, Devin Singletary, and they ran a lot of two tight end or
Yeah.
12 personnel. This offseason, I can't remember if they cut Andrew Beck, but they didn't play him a lot. They brought in a third receiver. That kind of messed up the flow of
Yeah.
Bobby's offense, and Tank Dell didn't get a lot of reps early. We saw that if you played
Hmm.
fantasy football. And I think, the scheme didn't match the personnel, and I think that hurt them a lot. So
Yeah.
that's
That.
something that I think goes under the radar. And I just want to say that and get that out into the universe somewhere.
Hmm.
So whoever picks up Bobby Slowick, I think will
Yeah.
do.
No, I definitely think he'll get another job. So yeah. So the
Yeah.
next team I got on this, and they're in here. The reason they're here is for on for very interesting circumstance. The next two should are interesting circumstances. First is the 49ers. After coming up in the Super Bowl last year, many people thought they'd get back. They flat out fell apart. And here's the thing. I think a big part of it was the injuries because CMC, like he only played like what
Such a weird
2 or 3 games this year before he got he was officially just ruled out for the year. Like that was, I think, a big thing that lost. Then there was the whole thing with Brandon Ayuk in the offseason. He
Mhm.
held out and he just came
Came out
he
to a slow start and
came out
toward
to a slow start before getting his ACL
yeah,
torn. And then, you just had a bunch of different guys out long term. You just weren't consistent. You were struggling, and it just
yeah,
really feels like this would. Here's the thing. This I felt like was their best shot to try again. Because if
yeah.
you think about it now, they're in trouble. Because you got to
Hmm.
think about it like this: Brock Purdy, he's going to want to get paid. He's eligible for a contract extension, and I don't really know if you can lose him. I don't really think that you can lose him and find a good replacement. You
No.
know, in in that same sentence, they're over the cap. You might be having to say goodbye to both Debo Samuel and George Kittle because I don't think I feel like they're not going to trade Fred Warner. They're not going to trade Nick Bosa. They're not going to. They're damn sure not trading Trent Williams. Like you have to part with pieces and to get cap compliant. Like
Yeah,
I just think like it's not a good situation for the 49ers because I felt like it just it just feels like we're gonna look back at this as like one of the best what it sorry, we're gonna look back at this as a giant what if just because
hmm
how did the
they
hell does this team come up short in 2 Super Bowls?
hmm yeah, they definitely missed their window. I think you hit it right on the nose, and I feel like this is just what happens to the Niners. Their Super Bowl hangover always includes injuries and contract things, and I'll hand it to John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan because they've got the gang back up again. So I won't say they can't do it because they've proven to be able to win with minimal quarterback play. Nothing to slight Brock Purdy and Jimmy G, obviously,
Yeah.
but like you look at the guys that have played in the Super Bowl the past couple of years. So, but yeah, as a whole, the season was very disappointing. I think we saw the impact that McCaffrey has and all these superheroes that the Niners have.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, injuries suck. Purdy's contract is looming, and yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see what the Niners do
Yeah.
this offseason,
Uh,
and the fact that they have such a high pick,
mhm.
you
Yeah.
know, it could be really cool for them, but it also could really blow up in their face if they don't keep
Yeah.
it
It's
right.
why, here's the thing. Like, it's why I said, like, I think the two guys who are on the chopping block are Debo and George Kittle.
Yeah.
Kittle.
Oh, Debo's
Kittle.
gone. Debo's
Yeah,
got to be.
Debo, like, he, he's just, nah.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing, I feel like it's going to suck to lose George Kittle, but he's making a ton of money.
I don't
Like,
know. I don't know about him.
that's
I don't
the,
know. They can't. Kittle is he's just that guy there. I can't see them doing that.
like, I know, but like the option, like here's the alternative. You have to choose one. Essentially it comes down if you're keeping Kittle, you got to choose Trent Williams, Nick Bosa, or Fred Warner. You
Hmm.
can't keep them. You can't keep all of them. That's the issue.
I mean, if it were me, I'd choose to get rid of Trent Williams, but that's me.
Yeah.
That's me. Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit of a tangent, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Niners. I'm very, like I said, very interested.
Yeah. So now the final team that I know you and I both have here is the Miami Dolphins. Now here's the thing. Personally, from my perspective, like the Dolphins being here, I don't necessarily put them full. I don't put the full blame on. I put more blame on the situation they were in rather than the actual team as a whole. Because here's the thing, like Tua getting another concussion in week 2, I think just really was the thing that just sent this thing into the drain. Because
Hmm.
that's the thing, like Tua, I think he's a really good quarterback. I know he gets a lot of flack for some stuff, primarily his fault, but I mean, that's the issue is like this is the like third time in his career where he's gotten concussed and then he's lying cold on the field, out cold on the field. Like I
Yeah.
think you just really have to question like what's the long-term future with him in this. And I'm not actively campaigning for him to retire. Like I want to leave
Right.
that choice to him, but I think
Mhm.
it's just it's
Definitely.
concerning. and especially with like the roster, like it's not really, if you really think about it, like it's not a good roster. Like, sure, they got some nice skill positions, Devin A. Chan, Jalen Waddle, Hill, but realistically, no offensive line, nothing on defense. Like,
Yeah,
I feel those are infinitely more important than your skill
I think so.
positions, and I feel it's hurting them as a result. So,
Hmm.
because it was just by the time Tua was able to be cleared to step foot on the field, like it was just too late.
Hmm.
Like this whole thing went,
Yeah.
and now I think the question is now like, what's the future for Mike McDaniel's and Will Greer? Because like
Hmm.
here's the thing, McDaniel's is a good coach. I feel like if you can keep him, just because like I forget his age, but he's like in his
He's
he's
young.
still young,
Hmm.
and he's from that Shanahan tree. I'm looking more at Will Greer because you got to. I'm looking at I'm looking at all the free agents you've picked up over the past few years, all the guys you've drafted. Who's exactly proven? Who's actually you can point me to someone who you can say like he was a great draft pick because
Yeah,
Jalen Waddle maybe that's about it.
debatable. They've been a good drafting team. I mean, for me, it's just the way they've allocated their cap space.
Hmm.
Tyreek Hill's a tough one. Um,
Yeah,
Taron
I.
Armstead's a tough one for someone who doesn't stay especially healthy.
Hmm.
Um, I can't remember exactly the number Bradley Chubb's getting paid, but I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
he's still active.
I think
Um,
Ramsey's still there, isn't he? I think he's still they're still
mhm.
covering his contract with the Rams.
Yep.
So
Ramsey, and they have some really solid players, right? If you told me in 2018 you got Tyreek Hill and Ramsey, I'm like, oh, you're going to the Super Bowl. But I mean, they failed to put players in the right positions to succeed,
yeah,
and you saw that when they had a backup quarterback come in, and Tyler Huntley was completely unprepared. Skylar Thompson was completely unprepared. Whoever you want to name, they
Tim Boyle.
sucked. Tim Boy, he just he doesn't have a position to succeed. I feel,
Yeah,
but no, I mean when Tua came back, you saw him turn it on, but it it's like when you have a team in Madden that you built only because you turned injuries off.
hmm,
And that's the only reason you win the Super Bowl. If injuries were off, the Dolphins would be unstoppable.
yeah,
But it's just that you don't have the contingency plans. You have no depth on your team for
yeah,
when players do inevitably get hurt. And that's
hmm,
what we saw this year.
yeah. And now, like, the question is, what are they going to do now? Because I think Tyreek's pissed, and he might. I don't know what his deal is. Like, he's upset, and he maybe wants
Hmm.
out, but I don't know.
Yeah,
It's a
his
tough
whole career
situation.
trajectory and arc has been so interesting because he said he's going to retire at the end of the contract, and now he
Yeah,
wants to trade. And honestly, I think the Dolphins would be just fine if they got rid of Tyreek, sent him
yeah,
somewhere where he is more bought in and whatever, because they still have Jalen Waddle, who they rarely
yeah,
use, Jonnu Smith, who somehow blossomed. If they
yeah,
really like players like that, and Mike McDaniel thinks his offense should run more in that quick game rather than the over the top Tyreek stuff,
yeah. I think
I
the
think
million
that's a
dollar question is where are you going to trade Hill? Because
yeah.
I don't know if you're going to find someone who's desperate for a wide receiver and willing to take on that cap hit for a guy who also kind of has a bit of baggage. So
Right.
that's the issue.
I think people will expect a big haul, and if he does get traded, I think it would be for a lot less. Kind
It'd
of like
probably be like a third and a fifth round pick. That's
kind
what
of
you're
yeah,
probably.
yeah, kind of like what they got Jalen Ramsey for.
Yeah. So
So
yeah,
yeah, interesting. But I want to give one shout out to the Bengals because obviously they're a huge disappointment. I
yeah,
think they fired the wrong guy when they fired Lou Anarumo.
yeah.
I think they're in a
Well,
tough spot.
mhm.
I believe in Zach Taylor more than anybody. I feel like at this point because I feel like his offense works with him at the helm, and it sucks because he's also not a great head coach. He was a
Yeah.
great OC, not a great head coach, and they might
Hmm.
be pigeonholed into keeping him to keep their offense and their offensive abilities together. So just a
Yeah.
little
So
I want to say.
yeah, that's the thing with the Bengals. Like Zach Taylor, like I feel like he should have probably been someone to maybe go on Black Monday, but I didn't think they were going to move on from him just because ownership I think is a little cheap, but I do think I will say this: Amaruno, as much as I know, like he probably was a little better than Zach Taylor. I still think it was the right move to do just because that defense was important last year,
It
this
was.
year.
It
So,
was. They had a lot of misses. Geno Stone,
mhm.
I'll shout him out, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, but I feel that the biggest thing now with the Bengals is Higgins is probably gone. Is Chase next? Like, what
Mhm.
are they going to pay him? Because he wants more than just. Ideally, he said you can pay him what Justin Jefferson is getting, but with one extra penny. That's
Right.
what he said he wants. So
Give him the money. Give him the money and keep the band together, and I have faith
yeah,
in
because I feel like Chase Burrow's going to probably say you got to pay him. So
him.
yeah,
Yeah.
and also I apologize for people. You can hear my mom in the background. So
It's okay.
yeah,
My dog's gonna go berserk any
yeah.
minute.
Yeah. So now we can finally get to the granddaddy of them all, the Super Bowl matchup, because the universe chose to be extra cruel to us this time around. We are getting Eagles Chiefs part dos because that's the one that everyone wanted. Who needs Bay? Yeah, no one wants to see the rematch of the 91 Super Bowl between the Bills and the Commanders. No, no. Let's just torture people with this more of the Chiefs' insufferability. So
Yeah. You know, I think back to the article that me and Luke wrote in college when it was the Chiefs Eagles, and I took
yeah,
the Chiefs side, and I think I will still take the Chiefs side for a lot of the same reasons. I think the
yeah,
Eagles again are the more talented team, but Patrick Mahomes, and there's the same things, and as much as I haven't been a Chiefs guy, what can you say at this point? I mean, they're the Chiefs.
yeah.
They are inevitable. Patrick Mahomes is the best player,
Mm-hmm.
and politics and drama aside from everything that's happened in the past couple of weeks,
Yeah,
they're the best team in the league. You can't
yeah,
beat them. You haven't. The Bills beat them in the regular season barely, and the Broncos beat their backups. So
yeah.
it's
Like,
them.
here's the thing. Like, the problem is with me is, like, I think the Chiefs win, but here's the thing. I can't real. I'm so, and this is probably just. This isn't me trying to be a hater or anything. Like, this is. I have trouble really kind of accepting the three-peat, kind of really just acknowledging their three-peat is like this big thing, just because I just when I look back at like a lot of their games this year, there were a lot of things that I just like. How did you get away with that?
Yeah.
That Mark Andrews' foot
Mhm.
getting the Bengals against, like, it's at the point where they're just playing mind games with everyone.
I
One,
know.
like, it's just, oh my
For
god, I don't
yeah,
know.
I do agree with you there because for a three-peating team, potentially, right?
Yeah,
You would expect it to be dominant, and it hasn't been. And I mean, when you boil it down to the actual things that matter, it has been dominant because they
yeah,
went 13-2. But it doesn't feel dominant. It feels like we got robbed of some things, maybe because of how certain things unfolded.
yeah,
But yeah, like the Chiefs have not looked like the best team in the league. I think most people
yeah.
would
Like, here's
confidently
the
say
thing.
that if you took biases and like everything that's happened out
Yeah,
of it.
like, here's the thing. Like, don't get me wrong. I don't like the Eagles fans or a lot of or Nick Sirianni. But here's the thing. They just dropped 50 on an opponent and showed no mercy. Like, I
Yeah.
take them way more seriously than I can the Chiefs sometimes.
Yeah, no, this Eagles team has evolved a lot from the
Yeah.
team they had years ago. Like they have 8 new defensive starters. I think I saw they have C.J. Gardner Johnson, he's
Mm-hmm.
Josh Sweat, maybe one other person, but
Cooper
yeah, I mean,
DeJean, baby.
Cooper DeJean. Yeah, I mean, they got a complete overhaul.
Yeah.
Um,
I
I,
also think, like, looking back from where they were last year, two new coordinators, Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio, two guys who have been very proven, and they've really, I think, got a great system flowing.
they do. Yeah,
I think especially bringing in Saquon really helped, just because
well, obviously, yeah,
they
of course.
I feel Giants fans are just just seething right now the fact that they have to watch Saquon in the Super Bowl because
Mm,
it's just, like, I still think the Chiefs win, sadly, just because I feel like there's going to be some tacky calls, and it's just going to be like,
yeah,
it's just hard
yeah.
but
I
You
think,
know,
yeah, of course I want neither team to win, but like, I don't know. I think the most important thing is that we have the best two teams from the NFL season in the Super Bowl.
yeah,
And I think undoubtedly the Eagles are the best team from the NFC.
yeah.
And then, the Chiefs are the best team from the AFC. So you know what? We got the ultimate climax of this season with
Hmm.
probably the saddest ending. I
Yeah.
don't
I feel like the only thing I feel like people are rooting for in this matchup is one of two outcomes. Meteor strike, or in The Dark Knight Rises where Bane just walked out onto the field and detonated and then somehow Heinz
the
Ward
whole football
survived.
field.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that's what people are just kind of hoping for, but in
Yeah.
last, it's probably not going to be fun pretty picture regardless. So,
Yeah. I hope Mahomes gets it. It's pretty hard to cheer against something that's never happened
yeah. I mean,
in
here's the thing.
football.
I saw a tweet today. I feel like here, let me just double check. I feel like there's only four other teams to three-peat. So I just want to
Like
double.
in major sports.
Well, no, in football. So here, hold on.
Oh, like
Four.
be in the Super Bowl consecutive years.
Yeah, no, here, hold on a sec.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
I
just
mean,
trying to.
the Chiefs, yeah. I'm interested to see what happens if they do three-peat and who they would potentially lose.
Mhm.
Not that Travis Kelce retirement rumors have loomed insanely large, but
Yeah,
I'm interested to see what he does and
Trey
how.
Smith to the Vikings, please.
Yeah, Trey Smith to the Vikings. Yeah, there. I mean, you see, yeah, we'll have to see. I want someone to hire Spagnolo. My gosh, what are we
Oh my
doing?
God, please, someone hire him.
What do
Jeez.
we do? Like of all the coordinators that deserve a promotion, he's at the top of the list, man. That I mean, we've seen how he's worked as a head coach, I guess, but like, I don't know. I don't know. You see a lot of people get another chance, and
Yeah, here.
whatever. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with them, and then the Eagles too. Zach
Hmm.
Bond, especially, I'm interested.
Yeah.
I had a buddy who was a Saints fan, and he told me on the first game of the year, Zach Bond has a legacy year. I'm going to be pretty pissed. And turns out Zach Bond's depoy candidate.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm apologies if I'm taking a bit, but I'm just trying to find where the tweet was. Let me see. Did I bookmark it? Yes, so there are only four other teams that in football as a whole that have sorry. So
Yeah.
there are three teams. It is the 2017 to 2019, 2017, 2018, 2019, the North Dakota State Bison, the UFL champions, the Birmingham Stallions, the Packers from 67 to 69, and then ironically the Minnesota Golden Gophers from like 41 to like
Yeah, the early days.
44. So yeah,
That's
so
the only
they want to.
beat.
That's what the Chiefs are shooting for, but can they get it? No clue. So yeah.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I'm excited, I guess. Um,
Hmm.
did I want something else? Sure. But yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
oh wait, I found the actual date. Sorry. So it's the 2022 to 2024 Birmingham Stallions of the UFL, then the 34 to 36 Gophers, the 65 to 67 Packers, and the 2017-2019 Bison. So
yeah.
yeah, it's
Okay.
gonna
Shout out
be
to USU. Shout out the
buckle
Gophers.
up, baby, because it's gonna be chaos. So yeah. Anyway, Hayden, thank you so much again for coming back on, man.
Of
Man, I
course.
always appreciate you doing this. So uh thank you guys so much for watching. I will keep you guys updated on my social media with more updates, and I will see you all next time. Peace out, everyone.
Peace. Thanks for having me, Charlie.